He spent 40 years fighting time itself, every tick, every second, every mechanical heartbeat that dared to slow down or stop. Henrik believed that as long as he could keep the clocks running, he could hold back what terrified him most, the truth that nothing lasts forever. But some battles can't be won, and sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to stop fighting. Let me tell you his story. In a forgotten corner of the old town, where cobblestone streets still remember the sound of horse hooves, and gas lamps cast amber shadows at twilight, there sits a clock repair shop that time itself seemed to have overlooked. Inside, the shop breathes with the sound of 100 heartbeats, grandfather clocks standing like sentries against the walls, pocket watches spread across worn velvet, wall clocks marking time in a chorus of ticks that never quite synchronize. The air smells of oil and old wood and devotion mixed with dust. At a workbench beneath a window that hasn't been cleaned in years, 70-year-old Henrik sits as he has every day for the past 40 years, a jeweler's loop pressed to his eye, his hands steadier than a man his age has any right to possess. In 40 years, he has never failed to repair a clock, not once. Every mechanism that enters his shop leaves restored, keeping time as precisely as the day it was made. But this perfection comes at a cost. Each morning he arrives at the shop at 6:30. Each evening he locks the door at 7. Between those hours, he fights against rust, against broken springs, against the entropy that seeks to still every pendulum. His own body has begun to betray him. Arthritis creeps through his fingers. His eyes tire faster now. But Henrik ignores these signals. He has work to do, time to preserve, defeat to hold at bay. The other shopkeepers have learned not to greet him. He doesn't look up when he walks to work, doesn't stop for coffee. His life has narrowed to a single purpose, keeping time alive. At night, alone in the apartment above the shop, Henrik lies awake, listening to the clocks below. When one falls out of rhythm, he goes downstairs to adjust it. He cannot let them stop. If they stop, what has his life meant? On a Tuesday morning in October, when the light coming through the shop window has turned the golden color of autumn, the door opens. Henrik doesn't look up. Leave it on the counter. I'll have it ready in 3 days. I don't want it repaired. The voice is old, older even than his. Henrik raises his head. A woman in her 90s stands in the doorway, a small package wrapped in faded blue cloth, cradled in her hands like something sacred. She moves slowly to the counter and carefully unwraps the cloth. Inside is a silver pocket watch, tarnished with time. It stopped 30 years ago, she says quietly. The day my husband died. Henrik reaches for it automatically, but she doesn't release it yet. Everyone tells me I should have it fixed, she continues. My children, my friends, they say I'm holding on to grief, that I should let it tick again, move forward, let time heal. She pauses, but I think maybe it's okay that it stopped. Henrik stares at her. You want me to not fix it? I want you to try, she says, finally placing it in his palm. I want to know I tried. But if it doesn't work, I think I'll be at peace with that. Some things are meant to stop. That's not failure. That's completion. Before Henrik can respond, she walks out, the bell above the door chiming softly in her wake. Henrik should refuse. He should call her back, explain that he fixes clocks, not philosophies. But something in her words has lodged itself in his chest like a gear out of place. That night, he examines the pocket watch. It's beautiful, Swiss-made, intricate mechanisms, the kind of craftsmanship that doesn't exist anymore. And it's broken in a way he can fix, easily even. But he hesitates. For 3 weeks, Henrik works on the watch. He cleans every component, replaces the mainspring, adjusts the it. Each night he winds it carefully, sets it in motion. Each morning it is stopped again. It's as if the watch itself is refusing to live. Henrik has never failed before. The failure gnaws at him. He stays later at the shop, skips meals, tries techniques he learned from his master 50 years ago. Nothing works. On the 23rd day, exhausted and defeated, Henrik sits at his workbench at 2 in the morning, the silent pocket watch before him. Around him, 97 clocks tick in their relentless chorus, and for the first time in 40 years, Henrik hears them differently. Not as life, as noise, not as victory over time, as denial of it. He looks around his shop, at the hundreds of mechanisms he's kept alive, the pendulums swinging, the gears turning, all of them fighting the same losing battle. Beautiful machines pretending they'll run forever. The woman's words return to him. Some things are meant to stop. That's not failure. That's completion. Henrik picks up the pocket watch and holds it to his ear. Silence. But in that silence, he realizes something he has spent 40 years running from. The watch stopped when it was supposed to. It marked the end of a love, the completion of a life shared. Fixing it wouldn't honor that. It would erase it. The next morning, Henrik walks differently to his shop, slower, looking at the old town around him, the worn stones, the crooked buildings, the ancient fountain in the square that ran dry decades ago and now holds flowers instead of water. All of it beautiful, all of it imperfect, all of it at peace with what it is. When the woman returns, Henrik places the wrapped watch on the counter between them. "I couldn't fix it," he says, and the words taste like both defeat and liberation. The woman smiles. "Thank you for trying, and thank you for understanding. You've spent your life fighting to keep things alive," she says. "That's noble work, but some things are meant to end, and that's noble too." After she leaves, Henrik stands in his shop for a long time, listening to the ticking that has defined his existence. Then, slowly, he begins to let some of them wind down. Over the following months, the sound in Henrik's shop changes. He stops taking every repair, chooses carefully now which clocks matter, which stories deserve continuation. Some mechanisms he fixes with the same care he always has. Others he documents, photographs, then lets rest. He begins teaching. Wednesday afternoons, anyone can come. He shows them how gears work, how to read a mechanism's story. His students are varied: a teenage girl curious about engineering, a retired accountant, a young father who wants to repair his grandfather's watch. Not all of them will become horologists, but they'll carry the knowledge, and that matters. Henrik leaves some clocks in his shop broken. Intentionally, a mantle clock from 1887, frozen at 3:47, a pocket watch that stopped at the moment of some unknown person's joy or grief. They sit alongside the working timepieces, equally honored. "Why keep the broken ones?" a student asks. Henrik considers this. "Because they're not broken," he says. "They're complete. They did their work. Now they rest." Word spreads through the old town about the clockmaker who stopped fighting time. People bring him their stopped watches, not to be fixed, but to be witnessed. Henrik listens to each one. The grandfather clock that chimed through for generations, the wristwatch worn through a war, the anniversary gift that marked decades of marriage. Some he repairs, some he doesn't. All he honors. One evening, Henrik stands in his shop as the sun sets through the dusty window, painting everything gold. Some clocks tick, some are silent. Together, they tell a more complete story than they ever did when all of them were running. At 73, Henrik still opens his shop each morning, but now he also closes it early sometimes, walks through the old town square, drinks coffee where the other shopkeepers gather. He has become a keeper of a different kind of time, not the mechanical march of seconds, but the deeper rhythm of meaning, memory, and completion. Now there are students, and stories, and the understanding that preservation isn't always about keeping things alive. Sometimes it's about honoring how beautifully they lived. In his shop, 97 clocks once ticked in unison. Now, perhaps 40 do. The rest sit in dignified silence, their work complete, their stories preserved not in motion but in memory. Henrik has learned what the pocket watch taught him, that stopping isn't the opposite of living. Sometimes, it's the proof that something lived fully enough to reach its natural end. He spent 40 years fighting time. He found peace the day he finally let it win. And in that surrender, he discovered he hadn't lost anything at all. He had simply learned to tell time differently, not by the ticking of clocks, but by the beating of his own heart, finally at rest with the truth that nothing lasts forever. And that is exactly as it should be.